And we are live. It's me, Lawrence Presman, the Prez. So thrilled to be doing this show. Two of my favorite guys, Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV, give us the pen flick. And Matthew Joseph at Mid-Major Matt. And Matt, I'll go to you first. How are you, my friend? What's going on over in Virginia?
Doing well here, as well as we can in these tough times. But hey, at least we got some NFL to talk about for this next hour, and looking forward to it.
We certainly do, and it's going to be a great show. NFC West, best division in football last year by far, and could be again. Ralph Michaels, what's going on in Vegas? How are you, brother?
Doing great. Countdown. Casinos open up in about 36 hours. So finally some return to normalcy around the corner.
Yeah, I'm jonesing to go to Vegas, man. It's been a while, and
Would you play four-handed poker, Prez?
I haven't played much poker at all, dude. A bunch of my buddies, about 20 of them, are playing close to every night on Poker Stars, and I play occasionally, but the big problem for me is I really just don't like online poker. I don't like leaning over my computer, frankly.
But will you play four-man poker here in Vegas, or is that a non-issue for you now? You don't want to play with only four at the table?
Oh, brother, who are the four? Is it Johnny and Marco? Yes, please. Is it Marco alone? Hell yes. You organize a heads up with me and Marco, and I'm ecstatic, brother. I'm thrilled. So, yeah, but I mean, with that said, obviously I don't want to play four-man poker on a regular basis. But it is what it is. It's the age we live in, and, we're just got to make the best of it. That's all I can say. Ralph Michaels joining us, Mid-Major Matt. Ralph was on a show today. It's up at our YouTube channel, Wager Talk TV. Check it out. Ralph, tell us about it, the college football betting preview show with Rob Vino, who is so good, and Drew Martin, great host. What did you guys talk about today?
Well, it was ACC Coastal. We went through the new coaches through a bunch of weeks, and now we started on the conferences. So ACC Coastal, interesting fact, there are 7 teams in the ACC Coastal. Each of those 7 teams have won the division each of the last 7 years. So you want to talk parity, 7 different teams, 7 different champions, 7 different seasons. And one quick note, college football fans, the Wager Talk College Football Transfer Guide is up. It is amazing. The transfer portal started last year. Check out how many kids have transferred from the schools that you like. Check out the new players. I have games played and games started. It's probably a $30, $40 value, but of course it's free at wagertalk.com.
Mid-Major Matt, what's going on with you, brother? How you been? How's Virginia? How's everything? Good spirits?
It's funny that Ralph was talking about the Coastal because I had to write a blurb for Athlon with regards to who I thought was going to win, and they posted the article, and 5 of the 7 teams got votes. So really excited for the Coastal this year. Obviously I'm in Tech and UVA country here, but with North Carolina and Miami and Pittsburgh, it's going to be a fun year in the Coastal.
Look at this, Ralph. Are you in the chat room? Johnny D is starting with me. Johnny Detroit. Settle down, Prez. Mr. Home Game Champ has not booked a poker win outside of his basement since 2007. Do I even respond to that with my list of accomplishments, or do we move on?
Well, if you got poker rings or belts, then you should. I know Johnny at least has a rock, paper, scissors belt, so shout out to him for that.
Yeah, shout out to you, Johnny. Way to go on the rock, paper, scissors. Anyway, nice of you guys to join us. Scott Brown, hope you're well. Field's going to be a better pro than Lawrence. And Chris Lippens, good afternoon, my friend. Yeah, I'm not gonna respond to Johnny with my great poker skills. He knows, and we love each other. And I'm just honored and thrilled that the great Johnny Detroit is listening to our show. NFC West, boys. San Francisco, Seattle, Rams, and Cardinals. Really interesting division overall. I mean, San Fran really, they've lost Emmanuel Sanders, one person on defense. Other than that, on a whole, their team is still together. They were really good last year. They did have an easier schedule than they do this coming year. Seattle, you can never count this team out. Russell Wilson is an absolute beast, brilliantly coached football team. The Rams, they're going to be an interesting story. Couple of years removed from the Super Bowl. Last year, 9-7, but couldn't get into the playoffs. And a lot of changes, not as many on defense. And what we saw last year towards the end of the season was an outstanding defense. And the Cardinals, a team that looks like it's going to be an up-and-comer and one that should score a ton of points. Ralph, just give us an overview, your thoughts about the division on a whole.
Well, let's just go through. I'm taking from the Wager Talk schedule guide. I have San Francisco power rated at 11.5. I have Seattle, the number 2 team, at 9. I have the LA Rams at 7.5, and the Arizona Cardinals at 5. So the Cardinals, I agree, truly closed the gap. I only have them 2.5 points under the Rams. And Seattle, I'm actually leaning, I have a little on the high side. So I would say Arizona is probably closer to 3.5 points to within the Seattle Seahawks for me in my rankings.
Matt, what do you think? Do you think this division is going to be the best in football again? I mean, Jesus, between San Fran and Seattle last year, I think it was 24 wins, more than the entire NFC East combined.
I'm not as high on this division this year. I think I could poke holes in a lot of these teams. San Francisco seems like the type that's ripe for the Super Bowl hangover after last year because, look, the loss of Sanders at wide receiver, I don't believe in anybody really in their wide receiving core. They're not bad. And Jimmy G, I don't know if I believe in him yet. The running back group, that as a whole is really good, but is there a one guy that they can ride? The offensive line is going to be really good, and their defense is going to be good. But to me, San Francisco screams Super Bowl hangover. But to me, who's the team that takes advantage of it? Seattle. I don't like their defense very much. I think their offense has improved. The Rams, I definitely don't like, and we'll get into that when we talk more about the Rams. And Arizona, I don't think is ready to make the jump from what they were to a playoff team. So the 49ers may win this division by default, but this team screams Super Bowl hangover. Yeah,
and it's a great point, Matt, and I agree with you overall. I mean, I don't see this division doing what it did last year, especially now that, the Brady is in the NFC, and that division is so tough. But it's going to be fun to watch. Let's go through this, boys. Let's start with San Francisco and their win-loss total. Let's start with who's going to win the division. San Fran at plus 100, Seattle at plus 250. I'm using the lines at Bet365. The Rams at plus 350 and Zona at plus 800. And I think we should just take Zona out of the mix, really, unless you can come up with a way for them to win the division. But Matt, do any of those division odds stand out to you?
I mean, the 49ers are probably the play, but I just don't know if I can make it at even. I mean, I Seattle could challenge them. I don't like their price enough to be like, hey, I want to take Seattle. And the Rams, I certainly am not a fan of. So I think the 49ers win this division as we get into their schedule and everything. It doesn't feel like a first place schedule for the 49ers this year, but I don't know if I'm taking them at even money.
Yeah, Ralph, I mean, to me, I could see an argument for San Fran at plus 100, but I can also see an argument for Seattle at plus 250. I think these teams are closer than most might think, and I do feel like they will as well split in their two games. Where are you going from a division perspective?
Matt and I are going to disagree a little bit because I think Seattle's way down, and I think the Rams are the team that, if I had to bet a long shot on, it would be the Rams. We'll talk about it more. I mean, they were number 8 in the NFL in yards per game last year, diff, and they were number 9 in yards per play, diff. So you're talking about a top 8 team in the NFL, not in the NFC. It's going to be up to Goff, and we'll see if that was a one-year downtick or if he really just is that subpar of a quarterback.
He's Ralph Michaels, Matt Joseph with us. You're watching the NFL Preview Show. Lots to talk about. Many shows going this week. Make sure to tune in to the Korean baseball show at 4 p.m. Eastern with Andrew McGinnis and Dave Koken, the legend and the boy. That's what it should be called. Or the tall guy and the old man. Chris Lippens, Ralph, he mentions that he downloaded your free season win total schedule and lots of great information. He appreciated that. And, you know, dude, it's funny because no matter how big we get or how old we get, you know, I go and I read these comments, and the comments like that, they make my day.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And there's a lot of work that goes into them. And, you know, it's funny. The guide that we posted yesterday and Johnny reposted today in news, you know, goes through every transfer, which is information you can't find anywhere. Everyone knows about the big college transfers and the spring practices. Some teams have none, some teams had 15. And I had a guy reach out to me on Twitter, and the guy normally appears on VSiN, which we all know is a huge network out here. And he goes, "Damn, Ralph, I wish you'd quit giving the shit away for free because it hurts the value." So, you know, not everyone's following me. So relax. It's okay to get the information out. You have to have the information to use it the right way. So there are a lot of experts using it. You should as well.
Yeah, and just for the record, everybody, not that I'm taking shots at anyone, but a huge network is like CBS, NBC, Fox, not a bunch of guys on an XM dial that nobody listens to. But that's a different story. Okay, boys. So, Matt, you like San Fran at plus 100. Are you prepared to bet that?
No. Now, look, this is one of those things, and we've talked about this on the show, to make sure to shop around because, you know, in Ralph's preview, it says 5-7, and I'm certainly not taking it at 5-7 when there's evens out there. So if you do like the 49ers, make sure to shop around and find that best price. And if it gets to, you know, plus 105, plus 110, maybe. But, like, I think they're going to win, but I can also see the Super Bowl hangover. So I don't love it enough right now on June 2nd to take the 49ers to win the division.
Ralph, you have the balls to take the Rams at plus 350 or whatever number you're getting?
You know, Prez, it's not one of my top bets. But, you know, if I had to bet something out of the four, so there's the difference. You know, there's times we talk about is the best bet we're going to get to the window with. I am not saying that I'm getting to the window with the Rams. I'm saying if I had to make one bet that I thought was the best value, I think it's the Rams because, again, I think San Fran's by far the best team in the entire NFC. Well, not by far. I have the Saints right there with them. But you look at the way their schedule plays out, everything just falls in their favor. And, you know, while, the Super Bowl hangover is real, this team is just so established and so close to being what the team was last year that, by the way, was number one in the NFL in yards per play diff and number 3 in yards per game. Number 1 in yards per play diff, number 3 in yards per game diff.
Guys, I got to close the door of my office. My children are loud, so while one of you are talking, I'm just going to jump off the chair and close the door. We're going to go into the win-loss records for all the teams, and then the NFC West closes off our NFL preview show for the NFC, so we're also going to take a look at some conference odds, who's going to go to the Super Bowl, et cetera, et cetera. So, Ralph, let's start with San Fran. 10.5 wins for this team. You know, I can logically get to 13. And I know that sounds like a lot of wins, especially given that it's 2.5 more wins than what their odds are. Because there's such a discrepancy between the fact that I can get to 13 wins and I'm getting 10.5, that's a bet for me, Ralph. I like San Fran over the total. You know, I think this team matches up well against everybody. From a defensive perspective, Seattle's going to struggle to score on this team. The Rams are going to struggle to score on this team. Arizona's going to struggle. From an offensive perspective, look, I agree with you. I'm not sold yet on Jimmy G, but I do know that he's good enough. They're also going to have a healthy running back, a running core this year. And I think they might have behind Kelsey maybe the best tight end in football. I like their coach. I like the fact that they play in steady weather all year round. I'm betting San Fran over 10.5. Ralph, I'll go to you first.
Well, you're favored in every game, Prez. So, I could see 16 wins. When you're talking toss-up games between the threes at New England, at Seattle, at New Orleans. I'll have them as a 2-point dog against New Orleans, at the Rams and at Dallas. So clearly, when I have them in 10 games, they're a favorite of 3.5 or more. They're a team you have to look at. I love the continuity. So often when you have a team that was the number 4 offense and the number 2 defense, 2 top 4s on both sides of the ball, and then you basically stay pat. What do? You go out and you help your offensive line by getting the one of the best offensive linemen, and you got him for a 5th-round pick in Trent Williams. Yeah. Just amazing that the value that everyone waited. Weird, the Browns were talking about giving a 1-up and another pick. So the people they signed are good. The running back crew gets stronger with Cam Akers, and the rich keep getting richer with the schedule. They travel to the Northeast 3 times. They play the Jets and the Giants back-to-back weeks. So what do? They're staying in the same hotel room for 2 weeks. They're playing at the same stadium back-to-back weeks. And then they go back to New England October 25th. In reverse, Arizona goes to New England November 29th. And then they go back and play the Giants 12-13. So the back-to-back scheduling in New York is amazing. The schedule sets up well, like you say. They do play, in my book, the number 9 schedule. But when you're the number 2nd power-rated team, again, you're going to be favored in most of those games. Offense, again, number 3 in yards per game, number 3 in points per game. Defense, number 2 in yards per game, number 8 in points per game. Favored in every game but one, New Orleans. But so the question is this, as I'm talking it through. If I think 10.5 has some value to it, if they win 11 games, they are making the playoffs. So while I said there may not be value at even money, if you could find even money as I walk through and I talk myself into something, I would say there's more value making the playoffs than there are getting 11 wins.
Yeah, I agree, and I cannot see this team making the playoffs. And Matt, we talk, you mentioned the hangover, right? And it's real, and we've seen it year after year. But the bottom line is, they start the season so perfectly. Cardinals coming in, then they're on the road playing the Jets and the Giants, and then they host the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a very realistic 3-0 to start the season, and I think that'll alleviate sort of that hangover that we talk about. Where are you going with this team on the 10.5, my friend?
Well, I agree with Ralph. I think the over, I saw 11 wins. I came up with 11 wins with probably more. I think there's a chance they lose one of those 2 New York games, weeks 2 or 3. And one of the things that I like to look at, we're still up in the air. Everybody's talking about, yes, there's going to be fans in the stands, but if there's not, or if it's not until midway through the season, 4 home, 4 road, those first 8 weeks, the 2 of 3 to start, but then they're home for 3 straight. And then, you get New England and Seattle on the road. It just seems like, and this is something we're going to talk about with everybody, the trips east. You get the Jets and the Giants back to back. There are going to be teams, whether it's in this division or in the AFC West, that have to fly east, then fly back, then fly east. Well, they don't have to do that there. As Ralph said, they're going to stay in the same hotel. The flat spot here, I struggled to find a flat spot. Potentially, it could be that Miami game in between Philadelphia and the Rams when they have 3 straight at home on October 11th. There's a lot to like about this team, but I'm worried about the Super Bowl hangover. And I'll ask Ralph this. The minus 330 that you had down for the playoffs, yes. I like that. Don't you think there's a chance that number should have been higher if their win total is 10.5? Couldn't they almost be like minus 400 or more to make the playoffs?
Yeah. Well, I agree that this division's down, and I agree that, if you look at like the Saints numbers, I think the Saints have a much tougher schedule with Atlanta and Tampa Bay and Carolina than these 3 teams. So, I think the South is tougher. So I agree with that point. And I'm just going to throw out one more flat spot to you, Matt. that New England trip may very well be a flat spot because you're home for 3 straight games, including the Rams, and then you go to New England, and you have back-to-back road game on deck with Seattle. So as far as a non-division flat spot goes, I think the Patriots is a game to circle on October 25th.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Especially now, people in the players' heads, oh, Brady's not there. New England's going to be down a touch. So you put that thought between the 2 division games.
I agree with you 100%, Ralph. I have a tough time seeing the Dolphins as a flat spot. I do understand the logic, Matt, but they are going to be at home, and I think they will have some nice momentum, especially coming off of a game against Philadelphia. Look, I think Miami's obviously going to be a little bit better than they were last year, but they're going to have a tough time flying to the other coast and winning that game. Whereas the Pats game, I mean, we're going to talk about the AFC East next week. The Pats are going to be an interesting team to watch. That is for sure. Hey, guys, I just want to welcome you into the NFL preview show. Porter, nice to see you. Ralph, Scott Brown writes, Shanahan is a bad coach in big games. He's part of 2 of the biggest choke jobs in the NFL history. I could not disagree with that anymore. I find that a bit of an absurd comment. He's also part of 2 of...
People have lost to Bill Belichick.
Well, but Shanahan's also part of 2 of the greatest first halves in Super Bowl history. Is Marv Levy a coach, a bad coach, because in the one game at the end of the year, he lost 4 times, and every game before that doesn't count? Is Andy Reid a bad coach because he couldn't win in the playoffs until this past season? Shanahan has just started his run, and there's going to be a lot more opportunity for him to fix that. I don't buy that at all. There are so many incredible coaches, going back to the Scotty Bowmans in hockey, to the Phil Jacksons, to the Bill Parcells. You know how badly Bill Parcells got walloped in his, with the Giants in his against the Bears, the 85 Bears in that playoff run, and then he came back and won. So, I mean, let's not jump off of the Shanahan bandwagon. I'm not suggesting he's the best coach in football, but he's certainly not a bad coach because of 2 games. Anyone you want to add to that?
No, I think, it pains me to say this, Prez, but that was a reasonable statement.
Why, thank you, Ralph Michaels. Matt, Seattle, 9 wins. I get to 9. This team has always dumbfounded me. They've just always been slightly inconsistent on offense. They'll put up 32 points against a mighty defense one week and come back and put up 9 against a crap defense. I never know where to go with this team, but I never, ever will count them out. I can't find a bet here at all. It's at 9. I get to 9. It's straight pass, Matt.
Yeah, I agree. I come up with 9. And the key here for Seattle is, especially if there is no fans early on, they get New England, Dallas, and Minnesota at home in those first 5 games. And those, Minnesota and Dallas are the type of game you need your atmosphere for. So that's something to watch out for. If let's say they don't have fans, then that changes things slightly for a team like the Cowboys coming in. Something to consider. I know that there's all this talk that there will be fans in the stands, but just, in case there isn't, they have 4 home and 3 road and then bye week in their first 8. Look, they got added Philip Dorsett, who could be a nice piece at wide receiver, although we'll see how much of his success was Tom Brady. Greg Olsen, the veteran at tight end, although you can argue with Disley and Wilson and Hollister, they didn't need him. Hyde is a guy I wanted the Eagles to get, and so he's a nice guy to add into that, soup that they have at running back. And their defense is just okay. The flat spot here, I think, or at least one of the 2, I think, is potentially that Arizona game 4 days after the road trip to the Rams before the big game at Philadelphia. A team they played twice already last year in Philadelphia, arguably could have lost both of those games. They also have a December 20th road trip to Washington in the midst of 3 of 4 at home. I agree with you. I don't know what to make of Seattle. I came up with 9 wins. I think they're just there. They're just one of those pest teams that's just always there when you either need them or don't need them to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting team, and I really feel like they're going to go 4-4 in division. So then it's a matter of where can you get 6 more wins to go over, and I can't find them, Ralph.
I am going to put my statistical life on the line here and say Seattle will definitely not make the playoffs, and it's all just numbers related. You look at the Seattle Seahawks last year, they were +7 close wins, beats Bengals by 1, Steelers by 2, Rams by 1, Browns by 4, Falcons by 7, Buccaneers by 6, 49ers by 3. In the last 7 years in the NFL, there's only been one team that's been +7 close wins. If I take every team in the NFL in that time span, those teams that were +5 or more close wins, that means you'd have 6 close wins and 1 close loss, or 5 close wins and no losses. So you're +5 at the end of the season. Granted, remember, Seattle's +7. Those teams at +5 or more have dropped by an average of 5.2 games per season. No team has dropped fewer than 2 games after being +7 net wins. You look at a team that was number 29 on defense in yards per play, allowing 6.0 yards per play. You're looking at a team that's going to have 4 new offensive line starters. I see this team. This is one where if you pull down the schedule guide, the computer rankings that I have is going to show them at 9.4 wins because you win half of the close games. I see that coming back to the mean. I think Seattle doesn't get past 8, and I am betting them under and not to make the playoffs.
Well, and Ralph, remember, this is a team that if Carson Wentz doesn't get hurt in the playoffs on a cheap hit, they lose to and they nearly lost to Josh McCown anyway, and Josh McCown tore his hamstring in the, first or second quarter, so I could see it. I don't believe in Seattle, so I could see what you're saying there.
Yeah, but I do want to talk about one thing conceptually, Ralph, because, we do the NFL presidential address together. We're going to be doing it all year this coming football season. And you talk a lot about these, teams that win tight games. And you speak about it, you tend to speak about it in the negative, as in it'll come back to the means. You can't win so many close games. That means you're a team that's not that much better than your competition. You're just happen to be winning the close games. You look at Seattle under Carroll, and I think every year has been like that, Ralph. I don't have their win-loss record in front of me for the last 7 years, but all I know is every time Russell Wilson has that ball down by 6 with 2 to go, that's a 1-point win. If they have the ball down by 2 with 2 to go, that's a 1-point win. Maybe there are just teams that have it in their makeup to win close games, and I actually think Seattle is one of those teams.
Well, again, they weren't +5 wins or more over those years because, again, I went through every NFL team, so I'm not picking certain teams. And I talk a lot about turnovers, and there are certain teams like the Patriots that with Brady – don't make mistakes on offense, and their defense does get a lot of turnovers. So, the turnover thing I can relate to that if I talk to returning to normalcy, not every team does that. But again, close wins and close losses is just the numbers in the NFL that no team has ever even had the same record after being +5 wins, let alone going up. But they've fallen back by an average of 5 wins. So, you fall back and even fall back 2 wins, and you're going to 9 and 7, you may not make the playoffs. You fall back over 2 and you're not making the playoffs. So I understand that Russell Wilson's a special person, but there's still a lot to winning every one of those close games in every situation and having all of the injuries fall the right way like they did. I'm a numbers guy, Prez. I've been in the NFL. It's a league of parity from top to bottom, and I'm going to trust my gut on these numbers, and I'm going to bet them.
No, and I accept that, and it is really, really good information. And I'm not high on Seattle either. I mean, like Matt, I see 9 wins at the most. if I had to bet one way or the other, lucky I don't, I would go with you, Ralph, and take under 9. And, Seattle can't be Seattle every year. I mean, even the most consistent, even the New England Patriots didn't win every Super Bowl that Brady played. The Rams, this will be a fun one, guys, because I know already that you both disagree. I think they're going to be slightly better than what the pundits seem to think here, Ralph. They're 9 wins. I can get to 10. I'm not going to make the bet. It's not like the 13 I could get to with San Francisco. But I do lean on the over in this Rams game, in this Rams team. But it ultimately will come down to Jared Goff and whether he can get it going. They still have a great wide receiver core, decent tight end core. They should be fine at running back. They've got a really great front seven, a good young coach. Matt, I'll go to you first on this one. I could logically get to 10 wins.
This will be my favorite bet of the under for the Rams. I got the 7. I got the 7 wins. I like the no to not make the playoffs. I actually have them starting out 2-6. I mean, you look at some of these road trips, and we've talked about it. They make 3 East Coast road trips. Now, I'm assuming they're going to stay on the East Coast between Philly and Buffalo weeks 2 and 3. But I also think that flat spot's week 4 at home against the Giants. You have to go to Philadelphia, presume you stay on the East Coast to play Buffalo. Then you fly back and you have to play the Giants at home. And then you're flying back east to play Washington. So you could even, if you don't think it's the Giants, it could be that Washington game on October 11th. And then you have to make another road trip to San Francisco. Look, I'm just not a Goff guy. I don't like their backfield. I think that, without Todd Gurley, for as much as he was hurt, there's no A back there. I don't like the wide receivers are nice. I like Cooper Kupp, and I like the other guys.
Robert Woods is a good wide receiver too, and he stretches the field.
Oh, yeah, I definitely do. And you mentioned it. The front seven's really good. I just, Jalen Ramsey and who else in that secondary, I'm just not a Rams guy. 3 home, 5 on the road in their first 8 weeks. I think that early stretch, it's going to be tough. I think they lose at Miami. I think there's a chance they lose at Washington. I think the under, I have 7 wins, so I like the under, and I like them not to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, look, I understand, Matt. Like I said, I can see a path to 10, but I can't bet over 9 because I agree with you. I mean, I think this is a turning point year for the Rams. They're either a team that's going to be in the mix for years to come or a team that is going to be on decline, and I think we're going to find that out this season. Ralph?
Well, I'm going to give you a negative stat first, and then I'll go into why I like the Rams. Jared Goff, remember those first 11 games he had? 26-6 ratio, those first 11 games. His next 24 games, 29 and 24. And that tells you why San Francisco ran away with the division last year. The Rams, when they went to the Super Bowl and they were 13-3 in 2018, were plus 0.4 yards per play, and they went 13-3. Last year, they were plus 5 yards per play. Statistically, last year's Ram team was better than the year before. Why did they lose? They were minus 17 turnovers. And I am going to bet on that team that was minus 17 turnovers, has a top 8 yards per game in the league, was better than their 13-3 team statistically the year before, has the best defensive line in the country. Jared Goff, we talk about sophomore jinxes all the time in the NFL. That third year, you now bounce back. I love Cam Akers in the backfield. I think he is going to be a stud. This was the number 1 kid out of high school in the running game. Florida State was horrendous. I think he's going to fit in just well. Now, can Goff win those close games? You got a ton. In your first 3 games of the year, Dallas is between the 3s. At Philly, between the 3s. At Buffalo, between the 3s. So, for me, they have to win 1 out of 3 of those. They have to be at least 1-2 facing the Giants. So, again, I'm a statistical guy. My numbers tell me the Rams still have the same team to get them there. Their off-season moves, did they lose anyone huge? Brandon Cooks, Fowler, Littleton's gone, Robbie Coleman, and the kicker Zerline. But, the guys you bring in, part of that was salary. They had to get rid of a defensive lineman, then they drafted one.
Yeah.
So numbers tell me they'll be there. Goff in his third year tell me he'll be here. You got three coaches, the head coach, the OC, the DC, still 39 years or younger. They're going to learn from their mistakes. They're going to adjust. With that said, though, I am not to the point to anointing the Rams as a playoff team, but I do have them at 9 wins. It's only half over the total, so I'm not going to bet them. But if this Ram team wins 10 or 11 games, I am not surprised at all. I think if I could say they're going to win 11 or they're going to win 7, to put it in, I would bet more they would win 11 than 7.
He's Ralph Michaels. You can find him at wagertalk.com, Matt Joseph at sportsmemo.com, and I'm Lawrence Presman, the Prez. Yeah, Ralph, and a couple of other things to take into account with the Rams. Firstly, they had some injuries at wide receiver last year, and that definitely hurt on the turnover situation, especially with Kupp. He's such a rock-solid slot receiver, and then they went into the season really building their offense around Gurley, and he just couldn't handle the load, just wasn't the same. Very hard to make in-season adjustments like that, especially when you don't have a good second and third running back. I think they knew ahead of time, and we know this now. I mean, Gurley's not even there. I think they know ahead of time that they're coming into the season with a different team, and I think they will build a game plan around that. But I agree with both of you guys, and I know that sounds silly because Matt's saying under and you're saying over, and the problem with me ultimately is similar to Seattle. I mean, I would really not be shocked if the Rams were 7-9, and I would not be shocked if the Rams were 11-5. So I think it's just going to be an interesting team to watch. That's for sure.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you look at their schedule, it's just unrelenting. You get those 5 of 7 on the road, and then you get the bye week. Okay, but after the bye week, you come out. You're hosting Seattle. You're at Tampa Bay. You host San Francisco. You're at Arizona. New England, we'll talk about, and the Jets, I'm a little more optimistic on the Jets. And there's no, real easy stretch for this team this year. And if you're not a fan of them like I am, then that's why I see the under 8.5 as something that's going to be there.
And that's a really interesting.
With the number 9 schedule, Matt.
Yeah, sorry, Ralph?
I have them with the number 9 schedule in the NFL overall. So I agree, a very difficult schedule.
Yeah, but
they
you know what else?
They almost should have had it at San Francisco's schedule. San Francisco should, if you told me at the first place team had this schedule, I'd be like, yeah, it's very believable. But San Francisco's schedule is a lot easier, it seems, than the Rams' schedule. And look where they finished in the standings.
Well, and the other thing that's really interesting about the scheduling, Ralph, and I don't know if you take this into account in your schedule ratings, but you take a look at a team like Arizona, let's say, and we're going to get to them in a second. They start the season on the road playing the Niners, but then they're hosting the Redskins, the Lions, then they're playing the Panthers, and then they're playing the Jets. The problem with San Fran's schedule is there's no stretch of easy games. I mean, the Rams schedule, you look at it and you go, okay, they got the Bills, then they've got the Giants, then they've got the Redskins. Okay, that's 3 winnable games. The Bills, and we'll talk about this next week, are a vicious team, and they are going to be really tough to beat in Buffalo. And that's ultimately the real issue with this Rams schedule is there's no stacked up bunch of easy wins that will get them the momentum they might need when they go into San Francisco. Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Matt, that San Francisco and Rams schedule. Now, let's remember, the NFL schedule can't be simpler than it is. You play the exact same schedule with the exception of 2 teams. So you're playing a division in the AFC. You're playing a division in the NFC. So those 2 games difference, San Francisco has Green Bay and New Orleans as their 2 wild card games, where the Rams have Tampa Bay and Chicago. So The Rams schedule to me is clearly easier than San Fran, but they're both number 9 for me because while San Fran's schedule is harder, the Rams has to play San Francisco twice, which ups the number of their strength of schedule, while San Fran plays a team that has a 7.5 power rating, which brings it down. So the schedules for all those people watching, again, if you're new to the NFL or you're not paying attention, 14 of the 16 games are slotted out. You play your division, you play your division pose 6 times. You play 4 teams from one division in the AFC, 4 teams from one division in the NFC, and then you play the number 1 team in a crossover. So again, the number 1 team in the NFC North was Green Bay. The number 1 team in the NFC South was New Orleans, while the Rams play Tampa Bay and Chicago.
Yeah. He's Ralph Michaels. WagerTalk.com. Make sure to download his win-loss guide for the NFL and, well, pretty much anything Ralph does. If it's free, you get it. It's incredible reading. Everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this show. If you've got any questions, please put them up in the YouTube chat room. Also, make sure to check out Andrew McGinnis at 4 p.m. Eastern. Boys, Arizona 7.5. Look, I can get to 9 wins. I just don't think it'll happen at all. I think the under is the bet here, but they have a great ability to start off well. They've got a good schedule. If I were betting under, I would wait till the 5th game of the season. They have the easiest start to the year in this division. The jury's out on Kyler Murray. DeAndre Hopkins, gigantic pickup. But I don't ever recall a wide receiver, whether it's Jerry Rice, Sterling Sharp, L-Tune. Do you like the L-Tune reference there, Ralph? There's never been a wide receiver that has made up 4 wins in a season. So I think under is the bet here, but I can't touch it. Again, Matt, I'll go to you first. Straight pass for me.
I went to 8-8. It feels like the Cardinals are that it team in the offseason, and the big question is going to be Kyler Murray. They've given him the keys to the offense. He had his ups and downs moments last year, but I think with another year in the system, he'll get better. The question is, how much will the rest of the NFL catch up to what Cliff Kingsbury does? Will it be like Chip Kelly that first year with the Eagles where they did everything, and then year 2, it's like, oh, you're running the NFL caught up and he didn't make the counter moves. That's why he wasn't in the NFL anymore. So that's the big question. Can Cliff Kingsbury put in enough things? And with this weird offseason the way it is, can he install what he needs to become different than last year? I love Isaiah Simmons. I think Isaiah Simmons is going to be big for that defense, whether he's playing linebacker, whether he's playing safety, whatever it is, he's going to be a nice piece for them to look at. I think one of their 2 flat spots that I was looking at was either the Monday night game at Dallas, which will be the 3rd game in the road trip, or more likely the home game against Seattle after the Monday night game, after getting all this publicity. I don't know if you have offhand either of you, but when's the last time the Cardinals were on Monday Night Football? Let's say they win that game in Dallas and they get all the publicity and everybody's talking on Tuesday how great they are. Well, now you got to turn around on a short week with the bye coming up and host Seattle. So I think that one of those 2 could be their flat spot. I come up with 8. I'm not optimistic. I'm not like, hey, I love it as much as the Rams under here. There's a lot of questions for them to answer. It's still a young coaching staff dealing with a, weird offseason. I could see 8. I don't love it, so therefore I'll lean to the over, but I'm not taking anything with them.
Mr. Michaels?
I am pausing for a minute here because I'm I got called out on a question. It would have been September 25th of 2017. The Cardinals were at home against the Cowboys and lost 28-7. They were a 3.5-point dog. So the last time they were on Monday night, question is answered.
Thank God. And nobody called you out.
Okay. Listen, the Cardinals were horrific last year. So let's remember that. They were last in the NFL, minus 117 yards per game. In a decade, there's probably 3 or 4 teams that get outgained by 100 yards per game in a season. So they were minus 117 yards per game. So if the NFL had 32 teams, they were closer to number 38 or 39. So last year, they were number 29 in yards per game diff. They still got outgained by 60 yards per game, but there was a 57-yard improvement. That's a huge improvement. Most times, if you improve from one year to the next by 57 yards per game, you're making the playoffs. Well, what's the problem? Guess who was dead last in yards per game on defense? 402 yards per game is what the Cardinals gave up. And did they improve their defense? Well, they drafted Isaiah Simmons. And imagine this. They were last with Chandler Jones having one of the best seasons in NFL on defense. He was almost Defensive Player of the Year on the league's worst defense. If he doesn't have that season or if he falls back, that defense would be historic bad. But, then I look at it and say, well, I'll tell you what, I love teams that can rush the ball. Arizona rushed for 5.03 yards per carry. That was number 2 in the NFL behind Lamar Jackson. And if you're going to say, well, I had to look it up because my thought was, well, you have a running quarterback. It's much easier to run the ball. But Lamar Jackson ran the ball 200 times last year and threw it 452 times. Murray only ran the ball 93 times and threw it 542 times. So people think of Kyler Murray as a runner. He's not. He's a passer first. 542 pass attempts, only 93 rush attempts. But, they obviously believe they have the right running back in Drake, giving them, $7 or $8 million. They think he's going to fit in. Can a wide receiver get him a couple wins? Yeah, I think a wide receiver is worth a couple wins. But you look at the schedule. Right now you went from one of the worst teams in the history of the NFL to the number 29th team. And now you start the season at San Francisco, a loss, couple of maybe winnable home games, and then you go on a 3-game road trip. You go at Carolina, at the Jets, at Dallas. Then in November, you go at Seattle, at New England, and then you have to go back to the Giants again. You're going east 4 times. And to me, Arizona is a team that last year is going to be an over team. They're still going to run the offense. The defense isn't going to be much improved. Last year, what did they do? They were 9-7 over under. And in their wins, 2-1, 3-1, 3-2. So pretty split between their wins and the losses. But, I look at them. My computer rankings say 7.19 wins, so that leans with the under. But just the way the schedule plays out with the road games, with him having to play well on the road against winnable teams, I don't see that happening. I think they're going to improve. I think if you look at their yards per game diff at the end of the year, it's going to pan out where they're going to have a better statistical year, but I don't know if they even matched last year's 5. I have them getting to 5 or 6, but if they went 5-11 or 6 or 10, I have them in that range.
Yeah, and really quick, you mentioned the over under in their games, and I've got them signaled as a team that I will be betting over the total on a lot. I could actually see an 11-5 to the over this year, and I think DeAndre Hopkins is actually going to be really good for the over for 2 reasons. 1, he's DeAndre freaking Hopkins. But 2, I think the defense is going to be on the field a shit ton, Ralph. Kenyon Drake is not a bruising running back in any stretch. He's not Henry. He's not a clock control running back. They're going to be running a lot of James White style wheels with him. He's going to be more of a catching back. I think you're going to have really quick scores from Arizona. They're going to move up and down the field fast. That's going to put a ton of pressure on their defense, which is abysmal at best. This team against Kansas City is going to go in. They're not playing Kansas City, but I mean, there would be your first ever 60. I don't remember there ever being a 60, Ralph. Has there ever been a 60 in an NFL game? No.
No, I'm sure there hasn't.
Yeah, no, there hasn't.
But as we talk, I am looking. One thing I will say is For fantasy guys. I'm not much of a fantasy guy, but with the addition at wide receiver, I'm really a fan of Kirk. When I watch him practice and I watch him run routes, I think he's the guy that's going to benefit the most, where you have that number 2 receiver coming up. And Prez 63.5, the Chiefs and the Rams on November 19th. That was that game. And then a 60.5, the Saints against the Falcons, November 22nd, 2018.
Wow, there you go. Man is full of info. Okay, boys, here's how we're going to end this show. We're going to go 8-9 more minutes. I'm going to go with rapid fire questions. I just want quick answers. Matt, you're up first. We've just finished the NFC. There are 4 teams at the bottom of each division. Washington plus 1,200 to win their division. Detroit plus 650. Carolina plus 1,800. Arizona plus 800. Pick one that has the best chance to win that division.
I think it's the Lions. As we've talked about when we did that division, I like Matt Stafford. I think he has a huge year. So I'll take the Lions in a division where I don't absolutely love any of those teams.
Ralph?
Yeah, well, I don't want to just take the shortest odds, but I don't think it's even that close. Even if you put Arizona at what you said, 8-1.
Yep.
If you put Arizona at 10 to 11-1, I still would have taken the Lions. Yeah, I think that's such a clear cut from top to bottom. We talked about it. The power rating's only 2.5 or 3-point difference from the best to the worst in the NFC North.
Okay, boys. Cowboys plus 105 to win their division. Packers in Minnesota 162. New Orleans minus 110. San Fran plus 100. Pick one, Matt.
I will go with the New Orleans Saints. I think I'm higher on them. I know they have a tougher schedule, but I think Drew Brees' swan song is going to go with them, and I'm not as high on Tampa Bay, so I'll go New Orleans.
Ralph?
Well, I didn't give a lot of praise to San Fran, but putting in perspective of the other teams in the division, I will take San Fran.
Okay, NFC Championship winner. San Fran is plus 400. Again, lines I'm using are from Bet365. New Orleans 550, Tampa Bay 550, Dallas 750, Philly 900, Green Bay 1,000, and on. Which one of the favorites, none of them are favorites, but you know what I mean, Matt, has some value for you?
Well, value-wise, I think the Eagles are being slept on big time because of the Cowboys getting all the publicity. Cowboys had a really good year, and once again, it's a division they could win. Value-wise, I think it's the Eagles, but I think the Saints finally get it done and win the NFC.
Ralph Michaels?
I picked the Saints in Kansas City last year, Prez, and I'm going with the Saints in Kansas City this year.
Yeah. Any outside shot? Atlanta plus 2,000. Worth the flyer, Matt?
Atlanta's capable. There's those years where they just come out of nowhere and they're really successful. Matt Ryan's getting older and everything. No, not at 20-1. I'd need a whole heck of a lot more than that.
Well, 14-1 for the Rams. I know you're high on them. Any value there?
Yeah, I think they're worth a shot, and I'm going to throw out Buffalo and Chicago. Anytime you have a top 5 defense, if you get decent quarterback play, I think you have a live shot.
Chicago is plus 1,600. Washington Redskins have the lowest odds in the NFC at plus 6,000. That's highly unlikely. To win the Super Bowl, boys, let's stay focused on the NFC. Kansas City, we know. Baltimore. San Fran at plus 900. New Orleans at plus 1,100. Fascinating that San Fran is plus 400 to win the division and get to the Super Bowl, and add an extra 5-1 for them to win the Super Bowl. To me, if you're going to bet San Fran or New Orleans to win the NFC, you're better off betting them to win the Super Bowl and hedging. Matt?
Yeah, I don't think the NFC wins the Super Bowl this year, but if their best chance is New Orleans, so if you were forcing me just to take an NFC team, it would be the Saints, especially at that price.
Ralph Michaels?
Again, Saints and Chiefs for me.
You guys are really high on the New Orleans Saints, hey? I don't see it. I mean, I look. I think they're a really good team. Don't get me wrong, but I don't see them as a clear-cut favorite. I mean, if they're going into San Fran, for that NFC Championship game on grass, I don't like their chances at all. And
well, they host San Fran November 15th, so I think that gives them the edge beating it at home. So if there's a tiebreaker, they very well may have the head-to-head.
Yeah, and Matt, what about, New Orleans? Talk about hard luck. 2 ridiculous exits in a row. They got to be a little bit snake bitten.
Yeah, I don't like the Saints. I don't really like their fans that much. A lot of whining from that organization. Sean Payton is not a guy I'm a big fan of. But look, I just think it's their year. I think with Drew Brees, and with Taysom Hill. And look, by the way, they've got Jameis Winston, and whether you like him or not, as a backup or third-string quarterback, they have the best quarterback room in the country, so they could survive a starting quarterback injury the best.
Like they did last year with Bridgewater.
Hey, what about the white guy? What's his name? I've gone blank.
Taysom Hill?
Yeah, you did say Taysom Hill. That's correct.
Yeah,
always fun to watch where they put him on the field. I just don't think the New Orleans defense is really good enough to get them there. They're a decent defense, but will be interesting to say the least.
Number 11 last year.
Matt Joseph, how would you like to end the NFC conference?
Best bet between the three of us of a team that's yes plus money to make the playoffs this coming season.
Oh, Atlanta.
Ralph?
I'm looking because you caught me off guard with that. Do yours and I'll be right back.
Well, I would agree with one of the ones you talked about. I think it's the Bears. Foles, who I'm assuming is going to win that job, can play well enough for that defense. I think the Bears are the plus team I would like of that group.
Yeah, they're plus 150. Out of all the pluses, I'm looking for the playoffs. I don't see another plus. I don't see another plus that pops out for me. So, your only pluses are Washington, the Giants. Chicago,
I don't mind the Giants though, Ralph. Listen,
Carolina.
I'm not.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, no, but to me, obviously we're looking at long shots here. I would not be blown away if Dallas and Philadelphia are not nearly as good as most people expect them to be.
Well, they haven't been. You look at Dallas. 9-7, 9-7, 8-8, and why are they getting the love? Well, again, statistically, number 2 in the NFL last year in yards per play diff, and number 2 in yards per game diff. So, the year before they were 18 and 15. So it's not like they moved the ball, and they were 11 and 11 the year before that. So, who knows? We know that whoever the head coach is at Dallas is going to be a puppet. So. Be that Mike McCarthy now. I'm not as down on McCarthy with the Dallas job. I think it's a perfect fit for him. So we'll see.
Yeah, listen, it certainly makes sense. If you have a really bad general manager, you might as well have a really bad coach. So it is a good fit. You are correct, Ralph.
I just mean with Jerry Jones, how much say do those two positions even have?
0. Yeah. So you have a really bad owner, a really bad general manager, and a really bad coach. You are correct, Ralph. A perfect fit. Ralph, you want to end with anything? Anything left?
Nope. Looking forward to the AFC. We going to do the AFC Central next week, Matt? Oh, that's Prez's joke.
Why do you got to do that to me, Ralph? Come on now.
AFC East.
If I wouldn't have, Prez would have. So
AFC East, boys, and I honestly can't wait to talk about this division. I think it's one of the most interesting divisions in all of football, frankly. You got the New England Patriots and Buffalo tied for favorites. The New York Jets, a much better team than a lot of people think at plus 750, and Miami at plus 800. This is going to be a fun discussion. We will see you all next Tuesday. Make sure, guys, to turn right in to the Korean baseball show. It's starting now. We got to go. Love it, you all. Thanks so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.